2 years since I seen home. 2 years. It's fucking war.
At 0600 hours, we will begin training to go to war.
This is not dog company. This is easy company. The first and finest company in this regiment.
Each trooper will learn this operation by heart and know his mission to the detail.
We're ready to gear up, my friend.
All you have to do is remember what you were taught. I guarantee you gravity will take care of the rest.
We are on the eve of the largest action in the history of warfare. It's Normandy.
We all do our jobs. Everything will be fine.
Scared. We're all scared.
What made you decide to join the paratroopers?
Fire! I wanted to fight with the best, sir.
Tonight, we're gonna have to cross the river.
These crowds are gonna catch some hell.
We're gonna have to find another way into Germany.
Easy, you'll head up the mountain through the Ober-Salzburg. Take the Eagle's Nest.
Man, it's been a long war. It's been a tough war. We fought bravely, proudly for your country. We're a special group. We found in one another a bond that exists only in combat.
Welcome to our semi-regular Sunday Band of Brothers stream. We're on episode 5. Okay, Crossroads. So let me bring in my panel of guests. Fantastic panel, if there ever was one. First up, representing the good old US of A, we have Blue Collar Loser in the house.
Fantastic, and me? Wow, thanks.
Yeah, how's it going?
Busy as always, man. Just got the shower.
You'll have to see the Two Towers in the cinema shortly.
I know.
Next up, representing the UK, we have History Bro. How are you, sir?
Hey. All right. Yeah, good. Thanks. Yeah. Looking forward to talking a bit more about E Company.
Yeah, this is a very interesting episode. I actually do really like this episode. And last but by no means least, although other people may be popping in later, we have the inside man who's got some great inside pictures on this one. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, again, really looking forward to this. You know, this is a particular favourite of mine. So, yeah, looking forward to getting into the nitty gritty of this episode.
Fab. That's the first time I've seen that trailer, you know, for the show. I thought I'd nab that and put it on the front of each ep from here on out. And it's, I get chills just like watching it. It's great. Anyway, okay, so let's crack on. Band Brothers, episode 5, Crossroads. And we do also, as per usual, have the shooting script. I think this is pretty much the shooting script. Does have, as always, some scenes that are missing. Welcome to the chat. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you could do a little post about the stream, tell people we're live. Much appreciated. Good to see we've actually got an airborne trooper with us in the chat. And good to see Nav and Dancing Dog Films. All welcome here. So let's get into it. I'll do my usual quick breakdown of the episode, and then we'll go back over it in detail. It's a very interesting episode. It's quite Winters focused, but yeah. So this is really where we see Winters' leadership, and the episode opens with veterans talking about their officers, and in particular Winters, and one of them saying, "I don't know how he survived, but he did." And it opens on a flashback of a trooper running through a field in Holland. We then realise that trooper is in fact Winters, and he comes over a Dyke and embankment to catch a German soldier out in the open, who I think is answering the call of nature rather than being a sentry. If he's a sentry, he's a pretty dumb one. Winters shoots, kills him, and then we get titles on screen. It's October 17th, 1944, and we cut to Winters opening some curtains, and he's waking up Nixon. Now, there is actually a photograph of this incident, a real photo of Nixon being woken up. Someone took a picture of him around this time. I don't know if it's specifically from this scene, but it's certainly from 1944. And Nixon had a bit of a drink problem by this time, and was heavily drinking, and that's mentioned a few times in this episode. So it's quite good that it's quite truthful in that sense. You know, these soldiers were not angels. The running order of the scenes is a little bit different in the actual shooting script. As always, when things end up in post-production, people realize things are better here and there. So I won't scroll through the script as I'm reading this out, because it does vary quite considerably, but we'll come back to the script in a minute. So bit of a funny moment where Nixon refuses to get out of bed, so Winters grabs the nearest thing to wake him, which is a vial of liquid next to the bed, which turns out to be his own piss, which is a very funny moment. That soon gets him out of bed. They go to battalion and go into a farm. Question for you, Inside Man. That farm looked like it was part of the Noonan set. Is that correct?
It's entirely possible. I mean, I couldn't say 100%, but it is entirely possible. I mean, I wasn't there on that day.
Okay, yeah, it just looked like one of those buildings, but shot from a slightly different angle. They go into a meeting. Moose Heiliger's there, and we're outlined Operation Pegasus. Now, there were 3 Operation Pegasus, and History Bro will probably shed more light on those later. But this is the first one. It's an operation to rescue 140 British paratroopers who are on the run, basically being hidden by the Dutch resistance after Arnhem. There were a huge number of 1st Airborne soldiers that escaped during Market Garden after the capture of Arnhem and so on. And a lot of them were holed up with the Dutch resistance or with Dutch families. Incredibly brave thing of the Dutch to do. These people were still behind German lines. There was still a lot of SS in the area. If they had been found harboring these soldiers, they would have been executed. So incredibly brave thing. Colonel Waddy is played by John Light. Waddy was an actual historical advisor on the film A Bridge Too Far, so just worth mentioning that is the character that you're seeing here. It's also at this point we realise that Winters, who's been promoted, has been requested a ton of paperwork by Colonel Strayer. He wants a report on supplies left behind by the 43rd Infantry Division, cuts to typewriter, and Winters is on the case, typing up reports, things like this. There's some new replacements have arrived. There's comments about how young they look, even by some of the replacements we saw in the previous episode. They've acquired a dog called Trigger, variation on the name from the dog from the Dam Busters there. Liebgott comes in with an injured man on the table. This is the briefing scene. That's the farm set, which looks like the Noonan set to me. Yeah, okay. And keep scrolling through those as I'm going through this. So, so then we cut back to, they come in with the injured man on the table. Lipton orders the squad, weapons and ammo only, and they go and investigate the Dyke, and there's a gun position. So that Dyke, that road, looks like the same Dyke road that was used in the previous episode. I'm guessing it's the same part of the set, but it's just shot at night, so we wouldn't know if it was anywhere different. This is the Dyke on the island, or the Betwy in just north of Nijmegen in Holland. So they're going to investigate this German gun position that's actually firing at regimental headquarters. Winters leads them into an attack position, gets closer to the Germans. We cut back to him typing. We cut back to him setting up the ambush. Each man marks a target. It's kind of a cool scene. Some of you may have done that with that game on your Xbox. They fire. They take out the Germans manning the MG-42, and then they fall back under cover of mortars and MG fire. And then somebody gets hit. And I actually thought they'd said Hubler's down, but it's actually Dugman. Yeah, Dugman gets hit. We cut back to Winters typing. We cut back to the following morning. They're trapped in this position. And Winters realizes that the enemy can easily outflank them on the other side of the dike. If they push forward, they can get round behind them, and they'll basically all be trapped and either killed or captured. So Winters realizes now that they're trapped there, they've got no choice but to attack. Peacock is in this attack. I completely missed that when I watched this before, that Peacock was involved in this attack, because it's literally a line and you see him for a second. We cut back to Winters typing again. Nix arrives with a drink. There he is. He basically advised him to say "we" a lot in the report that he types up. We cut back to the attack. Winters orders men to fix bayonets and says, "We're going to go. I'm going to charge, and then you're going to advance on the red smoke." Winters charges out, and the smoke fails to ignite as it should. So Easy Company are charging behind him slightly later than intended, because Peacock ordered them not to move. He nearly fucks up the smoke, nearly fucks up the attack, basically. Then Winters manages to discharge 2 complete magazines from his rifle before anyone else arrives to back him up. He fires the first shot, kills the guy here, then gets dropped to one knee and empties the rest of his magazine before reloading and continuing to fire. The Germans start panicking. Some of them start firing back, and then the rest of Easy Company are upon them. One thing I made a note of in this scene, Inside Man, is that there's a windmill in the background of this.
Yeah.
Do you remember that on the set?
Yes, I do. Yeah.
I'm guessing
I think there was a couple. Yeah, they were, one of Alan Tomkins' little kind of
2D structures.
2D structures. Yeah. Very good.
It's just details like that are really nice. So yeah, battered windmill in the background, made a note of that. So this is an incredible sequence, and there's a whole other company that's on the other side of the dike. They all come over. Now, if the Germans had attacked and done the same to them first, they would have been really, really screwed. So it's definitely the right call. This all really happened, of course. There's the windmill on the back right. Amazing to think that that's an Alan Tomkins painting special, big bit of cardboard with a few things attached to it. They call in some artillery. Some Germans try and surrender, claiming they're Polish. Boyle is hit. Lee got his charge with taking the prisoners back to the CP. Winters forces him to empty his gun and only gives him 1 bullet because he doesn't trust him to take them back because he's Jewish, and not execute some of them because some of them are SS. Nixon arrives. I've also noticed when Peacock says the line, "There's only 22 wounded." Amazing. His voice is exactly the same as the actor Christian Slater, which is quite strange. But it is. If you listen to that line, it's absolutely identical. This whole sequence is, even for Band of Brothers, this whole sequence is extremely desaturated with the colors. See, like that shot there, it's almost like black and white, almost.
It's
but looks
pretty grainy.
Yeah, but I like that. I like that look for it. It just gives it that authenticity. We cut back to Winters finishing the report. Cut back to Winters and Nix. We find that Dugman was KIA. Winters asks for a drink of water, and Nixon has to check his canteen to see if it's water or alcohol, which again just sort of underscores the drink problem. And Winters knows about it as well. There's that kind of banter of acknowledgement that they know about it. So we then go back to the CP. We find out Major Horton is KIA. Winters is promoted. Bruce Heiliger is given direct command of Easy Company. And then we have the medic, who we're going to see a lot more of in the Bastogne officer episode, offers Winters some coffee. Nix then finds Winters with an orderly, the most nerdy guy that you could possibly find in casting. Has this role. I don't know if we've got a shot of him coming up. And then there he is. Yeah. And Nix has got that line. Can you conjure up a bacon sandwich? Yeah. And Winters is a bit concerned about him. There's that whole line: if you run into a bacon sandwich, do the same. So then we have the mission of the Paras being rescued. This is Operation Pegasus. Nice little reconstruction of this. One of the interesting note, Sebastian Abbatini, who was one of the Richard Attenborough's army guys in A Bridge Too Far, he has written a feature film script about this operation, which he's been trying to get made for quite a while. I only just found that out. Yeah. Another British war movie that hasn't been made because it's about British people. So, but you know, so I like the password here, Leicester Square. And we have the backhanded compliment. Never thought I'd be so glad to see a bloody Yank. So the Red Devils and the 101st bonding is really nice because, you know, Airborne very much see themselves as brothers. But then you have the detachment of Winters from the company. Now that he's the rank he is, part of this episode is his kind of segregation from the men. He can hear them all celebrating, but he's not part of it because he's got to type up all these reports, as we can see in that picture. We then cut to Winters and Moose Heiliger in drill, walking at night. Then a sentry opens fire and hits Moose 4 times. Now, this did happen in history. Moose did survive. He was discharged in 1947. And he lived until 2001, and he died the day before the release of episode 10.
Damn.
So he saw all 9 episodes of Band of Brothers, but didn't see the last one, the real Bruce Heiliger. We then got the scene with the Doc, and this is quite good because it establishes Doc Rowe's character a bit more, because we've seen him very briefly in episodes. We're just building up, making his presence known, because he's going to get his screen time in an episode coming up. It's now December 1944. Easy Company are taken off the front line. They're at 65% strength. This is the first time we hear of Lieutenant Dyke being referred to as Foxhole Norman. Darnier returns. He went AWOL after being wounded. He comes back. He brings a letter from Moose, so we know Heiliger's okay. He's after a joint called Lulu's. Unfortunately, we don't get to find out about what Lulu's is. And I haven't been able to confirm with my research what kind of joint Lulu's was. General Taylor, Maxwell Taylor's heading to Washington. So it's sort of setting up this kind of false promise that everyone can chill. Like the war's going fine. Easy Company can relax. Winters is given a 48-hour pass to go to Paris. And it's kind of insisted that he went there. So the Paris scenes, I have to confess, I thought that there's 4 key shots for Paris. And I have to confess, I thought that they were probably shot in Paris. But I think only 1 shot was in Paris. And we'll come back
I think it was, I think it could possibly have been a background plate. But yeah, we'll get to that.
Yeah, well, we'll get that shot on screen. I mean, it looked like they could have taken just Winters there and got a couple of extras and shot it at night. But it could well be a plate shot. But see if you can grab that shot, Blue, and we'll put it up. So Winters is in Paris. He's trying to relax, having a drink, and this guy bashes his chair that's sitting behind him in a cafe, and he's getting really annoyed by that particular individual, which is this scene.
It's the scene right here.
Yeah, there was something in this scene, by the way, that I noticed that I'd never noticed before. Do you want to play it for a second?
Yeah, I hate computer sometimes.
Play it from there. Just play it.
Kill the sound. There we go.
No. We want the sound.
Oh, okay.
No, we want the sound. Take it back a little bit.
Right there. Yeah.
Right, that's enough. So if you pause it there,
Okay.
pause it there. We don't want to get done for copyright. If you listen to what those guys are saying that are all sitting behind him, they're all complaining of the things that they had to do in basic training. And it's clear that they've just done basic and they've just arrived in Paris. So they haven't actually seen any combat yet. Yet they're sitting in a cafe, giving it large and bashing Winter's chair. And do you know what I mean? It's quite interesting. I never noticed that before. Little details again. So he goes on to the metro. He sees the kid. The kid is played by a British actor called Jamie Harding. I think the kid's very good. And he has flashbacks to the kid that he shot.
Yeah.
Again, this is kind of PTSD before PTSD was really discussed. He then goes to the Seine River, which does feel like it was shot in France. And then he's wandering through the Paris streets and he gets to take a bath. What a luxury. Now, Paris streets, I thought maybe they just found one part of Paris at night, did some digital removal, and were actually these built in an aircraft hangar with a blue screen behind.
Wow.
I mean, that's incredible. That's incredible. That must have been pretty massive, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's a pretty big set, and obviously we had all the cobbled roads and lampposts. There were trees there, and yes, a little bit of a kind of a little ring road where the vehicles would go around, just sort of come back round again, so sort of loop around on the road. Yeah, it was pretty good.
Winters emerges from this metro station again with the kid. I mean, that's incredible. To think the amount of stuff that was put in the back of that shot is really, really, really well done. Yeah, do you want to say anything about that before I move on?
Yeah, I actually the majority of the backgrounds that are blue screened in, the background plates, they're actually miniatures.
Right. Okay. So they build a miniature, shoot that as a plate, and then put that on the blue.
Yeah.
Wow, it's pretty interesting. So Winters gets to take a bath, which is such a luxury. Love that scene. We then cut to Lurtz watching a John Wayne movie. He's kind of annoying everyone because he's repeating all the lines. Malarkey's won at craps. He gives Muck some of his money. Now that is actually really important. Again, I'm picking up on so many little details as we're breaking all this down because Muck and Pinkella are two of Malarkey's closest friends, and there were more scenes that established that, including in this episode, which were cut. And we know that emotional tissue between those characters becomes very important in the next episode. Winters comes back to see Buck Compton in the cinema. Buck Compton, played by the actor Neil McDonough. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that last name correctly. But this is also when we see that Buck is kind of, he's not himself. And this is because of when he got wounded in Holland. He's kind of not all there, and he's sort of watching the film, but not watching it. So that's quite a disturbing scene. Brilliantly acted, has to be said. Brilliantly acted. Next thing we know, all leave is cancelled because the German attack in the Ardennes is underway. At this point, we cut to Battle of the Bulge, this very inaccurate 3-hour movie, and then we cut back. So Buck's left in the cinema on his own, and you can see that Winters is worried about him. You can see that. They don't have a conversation about it. It's all done with a look. So then we cut to this shot. We're in moonlight. Everyone's trying to find this officer. Lieutenant Peacock is more, can't find the officer that he's looking for. We then get introduced to Lieutenant Dyke properly for the first time. Dyke is more worried about Strayer not being around. Winters gets everybody on the case. And what does Dyke do? He delegates the task that Winters gave him to other people, but doesn't actually do it himself. We see the Red Bull Express, which for anyone who doesn't know who the Red Bull Express were, They were African American soldiers who were the truck drivers, basically were the lifeblood of the Allied army and drove the supplies for them. And I have a little story about one of the extras that drove a truck, so remind me and I'll come back to it. So easier on the trucks. They're complaining about the trucks, what a difference a day makes. Everyone's wondering where they're going. They're teasing one of the new kids that he should have a minimum of 4 socks. Let's have the cigarettes. And then they start unloading. Where the hell are we? Fires are lit. They're at an assembling point, and we realize that they're in Bastogne. Dale Dye's character arrives and he briefs them, and suddenly everybody realizes they've got to beg or borrow steel ammo. I think at this point we see one of the American divisions in retreat. I think it might be the 4th, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's the 4th and the 28th. 4th and the 28th infantry. Yeah.
4th and the 28th, and so 101st.
Oh, sorry, 29th. I beg your pardon.
29th. Yeah, they landed at. Didn't they land on D-Day the 29th?
Yes, they did. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. 101st basically starts stripping everybody for ammo. This actor here who did this scene, you guys have got to get out of here. I didn't buy that. I didn't buy that performance. Actually, I have to say, I didn't quite buy that.
Yeah, it was the kind of they came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it just was a bit. It was a bit too much. I just think, you know, I know he was playing it like he was shell shocked and all the rest of it, but I just didn't buy it. Then more ammo arrives on the back of jeeps. Somebody's talking about the Germans got tigers
on the back of Jimmy Fallon's jeep.
Yep,
Jimmy Fallon's jeep.
Yeah,
there he is, TV presenter. They're asking for more mortar rounds. And then there's that great line, we're paratroopers, we're supposed to be surrounded. And we pan up to Easy Company, marching to positions. And it looked like the same road that was in Holland, but they changed the telegraph poles and made it a bit more snowy. I don't know if that's the case. But,
no, it wasn't. No, completely different location on the back lot.
And then the quote at the end of the episode is, so there's, you know, they're waiting for, they dig in and they wait, basically. And we know we're going into the Battle of the Bulge after this. Okay. So there we are. Right. Well, let's cover our topics in the usual categories with the usual caveat that, of course, Bo can insert important historical facts at any time.
The first and finest company in this regiment.
Each trooper will learn this operation by heart.
Okay, so sticking with the story and the history for this one, let's just hear quickly from each guest how you feel about the story for this episode. Bo, do you want to go first?
Sure. Okay. Well, so this episode is really 2 chapters from Stephen E. Ambrose. One is the chapter The Island, which is the island in Holland. So they're still in Holland. And the next chapter is Resting, Recovering, and Refitting. So this episode, Crossroads, is both those 2 chapters. And they're very, very different chapters. Very, very different. The Island chapter is very, very fighting heavy. It's almost just a list of fighting without lots and lots of detail. Well, it's a fair bit of detail, but not, you know, silly little detail. It's just so the thing to mention is Easy was on that island in Holland for 2 months.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things they don't make all that clear. That's the longest time Easy has sat down since D-Day by a long way, obviously. So to sit there for 2 months, that whole front became stagnated. Well, it was sort of salient that led nowhere, wasn't it? Really,
and it's quite bizarre that they ended up being the frontline troopers in that place, because that previously was really the 82nd's front line, effectively just north of Nijmegen. You would have thought the 82nd would have been moved up and put there, but they weren't. They were withdrawn. And the 101st got stuck there, having defended the biggest section of the highway. They then got moved up to the top section and left there for quite a while, probably longer than they should have been, really.
It is interesting. A couple of things to say on that. I think a few companies in the 101st, like Easy, did get a reputation for being very, very competent. And although it's hard on the men themselves, when senior officers know a particular company is competent, they do use them loads more than other companies that they know are a bit crap. It's really unfair, right? It's sort of, you are getting punished for being good at your job in a way. But also you can also see the rationale from senior brass to do that. Like, let's try and avoid catastrophes at all costs, even if it means the men of this certain company get used loads more than by rights they should have done. But anyway, just say so this is really an episode of two halves. One is the fighting in Holland still, which is some of the thickest in the book so far. That chapter is just all fighting, and then the rest and recuperation bit, because the chapter after that is on into Bastogne. Now, I really like this episode. There's no episode of Band of Brothers I don't love. There really isn't. But this one always seemed to me to be a little bit of a joinery up one. Perhaps that's completely unfair, and that's just in my mind because like the jump into Holland is a big thing, and the Bastogne episodes are probably my favorite episodes. So maybe it's not fair for me to say it, but just in my mind, it's a linker up episode. And in fact, it's way more than that. There's some really touching bits. I think some of the most human touching bits are the bits with Winters in this. Because we also, you said, Lance, this is a Winters heavy episode. It sure is. But we sort of zoom back, we zoom away from Winters a fair bit for the rest of the season, don't we? I mean, there's Winters is dialed back a bit for the remainder episodes. So it's sort of nice to have, for me, because I love Winters the most. It's nice for me to have such a Winters heavy thing. But yeah, him sort of going into some sort of trance on the subway, and Band of Brothers doesn't go in for too much of that schmaltzy sort of, the horror of killing and all that sort of thing, but it touches on it, of course. And when it does, I think it does it really, really well.
Yeah,
I've always thought it does that really, really well. But sorry, Lance, I can't remember your question. Was it just our feelings generally about the episode?
Yeah, I mean, sticking with the story and the history for this episode. I mean, are there any? I know there's obviously amalgamations and stuff is, as you say, very much condensed because this covers a big period. I'm not aware of any historical gaffes for this episode, particularly. Winters did get a 2-day pass to Paris. That did happen. There
is one, and you happen to mention it actually, and it is when Winters runs, and of course they're some distance behind him. You know, they kind of don't start running. They don't run with him, but that wasn't actually the case. They did run together, but apparently Winters was such an athlete, he was so fast that he left everybody in his wake. So they struggled to keep up with him. So they did actually all run together, but he left them behind. He actually says, I think it's in, it might be in the Hang Tough book where he says that he was so pumped, his heart was going and his blood was up that much that he didn't realize how fast he could run. And, and they were quite some distance behind him, and they were giving it all they got.
In this sequence, were you playing a German or an American?
Both. in this,
that doesn't.
It's bizarre. Yeah.
Because there isn't really a shot where you see all of Easy and all of the Germans in the same shot. It's very much we're shooting this way and we're shooting this way, and there's one shot that overlaps a bit.
Yeah, you're right.
But so you got to get shot as a German as well as run across the field as an American.
Yeah. And coming over that Dyke, actually, I nearly broke my ankle. I mean, I heard this crack, and of course, no, I'm okay. I'm limping like crazy, but. And they took me over to the medic's tent and everything, bit of ice on the ankle. And I thought, no, I've got to carry on going. So, I kind of, grinned and bore it really. But it was,
But the people that had the squibs on them in this, because they are squibs, aren't they?
They are,
bullet hits. Were they all part of the stunt team?
Not all of them, no. I believe that there were a couple of stunt guys in there, but just some of them were some of the core extras. And
Right.
what it was kind of like a tiny little battery pack that you would have, a couple of AA batteries taped up, very, very, very crude. Couple of wires going from it, and you just make a connection with one of the wires when you're ready to have your squib go off, and that was how it worked. Just sort of ran up the sleeve and onto the squib. Yeah, very, very simple.
Very effective scene. This whole described as a turkey shoot. I think in the book.
Yeah, I've got one little like 4 or 5 lines of Winters on that moment.
Yeah, go for it, please.
It's the moment just after he shot that first kid, when they both sort of freeze. And he said that Winter says that as he came over the crest of that dyke, or that little hillock, as he sort of came over the crest, he sort of saw immediately that one guy on his own. And he said in his peripheral vision, he could see just a whole bunch of Germans. He didn't know if there was 100 of them or what, but they were just in his periphery. At no point did he actually look at them properly. And they were sort of in that moment, they were sort of unreal to him. He had to ignore them for a moment while he dealt with that first guy. Anyway, Winters wrote this. Stephen E. Ambrose quotes Winters saying that Winters described what happened next. The movements of the Germans seemed to be unreal to me. When they rose up, it seemed to be so slow. When they turned to look over their shoulders at me, it was in slow motion. When they started to raise their rifles to fire at me, it was in slow motion. I emptied the first clip, 8 rounds, and still standing in the middle of the road, put in a second clip, still shooting from the hip, emptied that clip into the mass, end quote. Earlier on, Lance, you mentioned when he came over the clip there, you said he emptied his magazine. Of course you meant clip, not magazine.
Yeah,
I'm sure. No, sorry.
Don't expect me to be technically accurate on these little things.
There's certain things I've found, especially talking about World War II stuff. If you accidentally describe like a gun platform as a tank, people will let you know about that. Like a motorized gun platform. But it's that's not a true tank. Yeah, if you get clip and magazine mixed up, someone's gonna say you must mean a magazine or whatever it was. Yeah, or if you call a ship a boat or a boat a ship, Navy nerds get really pissed off about that. Perhaps they're right to. Anyway, so Winter's a very, very serious moment, right? Because Winters was a real person, a real man, and you don't just, it's easy for us to watch movies and TV and stuff like this and be all gung ho, John Wayne about everything, but the reality of that life and death thing, just standing out there firing from the hip into a mass of men that you expect to be returning fire, and you might well be your last moments on earth and all that sort of stuff. It's very, very real, right? It's I think they do a fairly good a job of sort of showing Winters when he's got to write up his notes. When Sink tells you, allow a fire under it, Dick, get it done. I think they do. I think they do it really well. That it's just sort of looking out, staring out while he's thinking. I was hunched over the typewriter, thinking about what went down. Again, handled very well, I think, in a writing and cinematographic sense. It was handled well.
Yeah, it was handled very well, but I thought quite sensitively as well, because I know that, as we all know, I mean, this moment where he does kill the boy, it did affect him profoundly, and he could not get that out of his head. He couldn't shift it. That was one of the many moments, but it was very much a prominent moment that he just could not shift. And I think the way this is shot, but edited, brilliantly edited. We really do get a sense of that he just can't get rid of that. He can't get rid of that moment.
And it's funny, I've read lots and lots and lots of accounts of soldiers throughout the centuries, and a lot of them say, especially ones that pardon me, that have seen a lot of combat and a lot of death, a lot of them say, I remember this particular one. You also get it with mass serial killers. if you've ever seen the accounts of like serial killers that got big numbers. Some of them in the 20th century, their accounts, like, and they'll say the same thing. It's like, I don't remember a lot of them, but this one, I remember this particular one, like it's emblazoned in my memory, and it's funny how memories work like that, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I mean, I think perhaps the trigger moment for him was that, when this young boy stood up, he did smile at him. He put his hands up and he smiled, and he said at that moment that was when he, unloaded his clip into this lad.
Yeah, which is, and if he hadn't have done, he probably would have got shot by one of the other Germans, even if if he hadn't opened fired on this. I've got this. Yeah, this kid, by the way, they must have gone to the casting director or looked at all the people they had. I mean, Inside Man, you might be able to shed some light and go, right, what's the who have we got who's got the most naive, sort of innocent, non-warlike, non sort of warmongering face, the complete antithesis of war. We need a face that's going to stay with Winters and make him feel guilty, and they cast this kid really well.
But of course, when you look back, I believe so. I mean, just brought in for the day. But if you go back and look at some of the photographs that some of these young lads that were brought in at the tail end of the war, former Hitler Youth, or even kids that weren't even Hitler Youth, they're very angelic. You look at some of the photographs of these boys, and also Dutch boys that were also part of the the Dutch SS and Dutch Nazi Party. You look at these lads. They were just boys, but obviously with that hideous ideology that had driven them.
So this episode, as I mentioned earlier, all takes place on what's known as the island, or in Holland, the Betwee. I just want to thank the National Army Museum for this very handy map that they've done on Market Garden. It's quite a nice one. And these events are all taking place in this kind of area, basically. They say that there's a ferry nearby. Well, there were two ferries, one which was the one that went over to Arnhem, which was sunk.
Yeah.
And the other one, which the Germans actually brought armor over, by the way, on this ferry during the Battle of Market Garden. They actually put tanks on it one at a time, and that was here near Husson. So I'm guessing that these events must have taken place around here somewhere in actual reality, because this is the only other ferry that they would have been near, because that one was destroyed during Market Garden. It was actually sunk. But there you go. There's a handy little map. Blue, thoughts on story for this episode?
Yeah, everyone knows me. I love action, and definitely out of all 5 episodes, the lightest of action, but not in a bad way. And this is all about Winters. I mean, it's a big group effort, but still, this is Winters' episode. And yeah, PTSD, a lot of stories, a lot of war movies, TV shows are very scared to touch that topic because it's a very sensitive topic. War is not made for everybody. And you can tell at this point, how many people, not say murdered, but he's killed in combat, and just takes that one just that stands out, man. And it haunts him.
I think this is the first time that Winters sees the eyes of someone he shoots in the show, because
it's relatively close as well, isn't it?
Yeah, he's involved in the attack on Breacourt Manor, and he does fire his weapon, but I can't recall him killing a German at close quarters in that.
Yeah.
And then in Holland, he barely fired his rifle, I think, in Holland. Because he wasn't in Noonan when that counterattack happened. He was outside it.
As much as I love action scenes, Lance, and I do, in terms of powerful performances, the entire Paris sequence and when he's in a subway, Just looking at people, like the way it's going, it's showing him back to the combat, him back to the combat, him back to the combat, just flashing. It's really intense.
Yeah, it's very effective. You know, just sort of. Also, I like he can't really reconnect with normal society, and here are these guys that are fresh arrived in Paris. They've not seen any combat because there were still loads of units arriving at this time into Paris. Loads. Yeah, there's that kid. The moment of realization that he's going to fire. You know, man. So I wonder who that kid is. I wonder if they're still acting.
Even as an actor's performance, like he just, as he shoots, you see like he just kind of jigs away, like he's, you know, I don't want to do this, but I have to, because it comes down to it's either you or me.
Yeah. Well, we're going to come on to characters and cast next. Do you want to chip in anything else about the history or the story inside, man?
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of bits that I would have liked to have seen in this episode. I would have liked to have seen the situation with Bill Garnier, because all of a sudden he just, you know, he just kind of reappears, and we get this kind of little bit of exposition. You know, he was wounded, and don't go joyriding again. And the story is that he actually was shot, I think, in the shoulder, and he got some shrapnel wounds in the shoulder and the back, and was shot in the leg whilst he was joyriding on a motorcycle. So he had some quite substantial injuries, and his leg was in a cast. And he went AWOL from the hospital because he wanted to get back to the unit. He wanted to get back to Easy Company. And he went AWOL, I think, 3 or 4 times. And they kept arresting him and said, look, you got to stay here, because if you don't, you really are going to be put in, in the glass house. You're going to be put in the slammer. We will lock you up. And he said, yeah, but I just want to get back to my boys. So what he did, apparently the story goes that he put boot polish on his plaster cast, sort of on the foot, and he managed to kind of stroll out, and and they caught him again and said, look, okay, it's a fair cop. When this is all healed, we'll get you back as soon as possible. Another thing that I would have loved to have seen was spears. I would have liked to have seen spears in Paris, because I think Beau will probably know about this, some of the stories about spears in Paris, where he would walk into a bar in Paris or a restaurant in Paris, and join some of the Easy Company guys. He'd sit at the table and he'd pull a grenade out of his pocket and put the grenade on the table and take the pin out, and just watch to see how many people just run away from the table. And apparently it was kind of his little thing. And obviously there was nothing in the grenade. I mean, all the high explosive was taken out, and the primer was taken out. But it's something that he used to do, just to sort of test the mettle of the guys from Easy Company. And he it worked every time. Everybody just would just duck for cover.
Didn't I read that he got into quite a few fights in Paris as well? I thought I read that.
Yeah, there was something, wasn't there, just before Bastogne, I think.
Yeah.
I
think he might have been arrested by MPs.
Yeah.
I can't remember the detail. Somebody in chat might know, but I think there was an incident. He got into a fight. He got arrested by MPs, but soon got returned to his unit, kind of thing. But
whenever the men had enough leave to go to one of the big cities, they'd always get in fights and be pretty much.
Yeah,
there's quite a lot about when they'd go to London. It'd nearly always end in fights.
Yeah,
and same goes for Paris. You just get pissed up and fight.
Yeah, well, there's a famous historical description, Beau, I'm sure you'd know this, where they talk about the difference between, this is not just it's Allied soldiers generally, not just the Americans, about the people in Normandy treated us this way, the Dutch and the Belgian treated us this way, but the Parisians treated us just the same as the Germans. We were all about how much money they could make and this kind of thing. I don't know to what degree that's true, but
I think Bill Garnier famously said that the people that he loved the most, he loved the British. He made no bones about the fact that he didn't like the French, but he said he loved the Dutch. He said the Dutch people were just wonderful people.
Yeah, Webster said that as well. Webster said his favourite was the
You're
Dutch.
right. Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah, that I remember Webster, that being something Webster said in the book. All right, let's move on to talking of Garnier. There he is. So well, as we've already said, it's a Winters episode, but there are a couple of other people that get to do some bits here and there. It's also we get a fair bit on Nixon. We get he doesn't have loads of lines, but we get a lot more depth.
Yeah.
And I think also we see the bond between the two men get stronger, because there's for one man to throw a bowl of piss over another man when he's in bed is a pretty big deal, as any men will tell you. So for him not to have decked him for that, they've got to have a bond. But
there really is a kind of a brotherly love between them, isn't there? There really is.
Yeah. You kind of see it in this episode when he knows to check whether Nix's water bottle is free of alcohol or not, because he doesn't. He's probably. They should have actually done another scene where he had a swig of one and went, "God, what's in this?" That would have been quite a nice setup for that moment. But but I like the way that grows. I have to give credit to the casting director on the show, because casting the little roles in this, like the kid who got shot, very important to have that right face for that. Very important to have the right kid on the train in Paris. So that there's the synergy between those two individuals. And I mean, it's not like a huge amount was demanded of either of those individuals emotionally, but they still nailed exactly what was required of them. And I think that's a credit to the casting director. Was it Suzanne Crowley? I forget. It's one of the biggies.
Don't know. I really don't know.
I'll check that, because I don't want to get that. I don't want to get that wrong. One of the things that's kind of, we get a bit more of Dale Dye. John Light is good as Waddy. Nice cameo from him. Inside Man, are you in this shot playing a Brit?
No, I'm not in there. No. Although Tom Hanks is.
It's Tom Hanks is in this shot playing a British. Yeah, because I heard that there was a cameo of Hanks.
Yeah, he's in there somewhere.
Where is he? Where is he?
Yeah, I know. I'm like looking now. I want to find him. He's probably going to be like in front of this guy, so we can't see him. So I mean,
apparently he's pretty prominent. Yeah, so you do actually see him.
Okay, well, I can't see him in this shot, but that's who he is. He's one of the Brits. I'm going to go through my.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
Going to go through my DVD. Yeah, so this is Jamie Harding, who played the French kid on the subway. I take it the subway train was in one of the hangars. Did you ever see that in the production?
No, I never saw the subway train, but yes. I mean, because everything's done because everything was done in studio, because it's such a controlled environment. So anything that's within the grounds of the actual backlot or within the hangars, I mean, obviously these are controlled environments, and you can manipulate and control every part of these environments. And when you don't have the necessity to ask for permission and get permits and all that kind of stuff on real trains and real kind of subways and real trams and real streets, it's so much easier. but of course, it's also very, very expensive.
Well, indeed. I mean, I have to admit, I thought it was incredibly brave of the production of the two. We have two films about Operation Anthropoid that came out very near each other, within a year of each other. I think one was the Man with the Iron Heart, and the XXX or whatever, and Operation Anthropoid, and they both shot the ambush of the SS guy,
Heydrich. Yeah.
They both shot that ambush on the street where it actually happened.
Wow.
And how they did that was that they blocked off the streets with old trams to obscure all the modernisms and traffic that was sort of going on, just over the road kind of thing. So sometimes people can get away with shit. There you go. It's quite interesting to see him, and then, there is that sort of synergy, isn't there? The face of innocence. Here we have Peter O'Meara, who played Lieutenant Dyke. So this is really the first time we get to meet Dyke.
Yeah,
quite a good sort of introduction to him, because straight away he just delegates shit to somebody else. Now there was somebody in chat was saying last week that the depictions of Dyke in the show are inaccurate and a bit of an insult to the real Norman Dyke. Is that true, or is that history, bro? Do you know if that's true? Was he a better soldier than is being reflected?
Well, I think so. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where it just depends who you believe.
Right.
Like there was a fair bit of flack coming at him from the men below him. But like a bit like Sobel, you could also find guys saying no, he was all right.
Yeah,
it was all right to me. I think Dyke is one of those. You know what it's like as well in real life. Quite often, like people are a bit like Vegemite or Marmite. Half the people quite like them and don't see anything wrong with them, and the other half of people hate their guts. And it's weird, right? There's people like that. I think maybe Dyke was one of those. If he messed with you, if you were like an NCO or something, or you was directly above him, he'd piss you off. But if he was a normal guy, he wasn't all that bad. But yeah, he's not painted that well in this, is he? I mean, basically,
no.
They make him out. They all but say he's like a coward, really, don't they?
People may have seen Peter O'Meara in the TV series Nightfall. He plays the character of Beringer in that. And he also was Benedict Arnold in the 2021 movie Benedict Arnold.
Was he really? Oh, I didn't know that. How interesting.
Yeah, that's him. So we only ever seen Dyke sort of in the dark. It's like when it's in the Bastogne episode, he's in the woods and it's dark, and there's not like there's a scene with him in a pub, is there? So
no.
It's always and I guess he's kind of, they call him a bit of a ghost, don't they? Which
well, I'll have to reread, because I haven't reread the Bastogne bit in a while. Was Dyke actually? But the real question is, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves now. But on Dyke, the real question is whether he had to be removed in the middle of the attack on.
I think that's not.
Foy.
Well, let's talk about that on that episode. But I think there's some question over the accuracy of that. But well, let's get into that on that episode. Just to go back to the casting, 10 episodes were done by Meg Lieberman and Carrie Patton. 8 episodes by Gary Davey and Suzanne Smith, both UK based, and Angela A. Terry. I've actually met Gary Davey. So like I say, the small roles in this, it's really important to get those roles correct. Okay, they didn't do so well with the dazed soldier, perhaps. But he only had one line. So it's all right. Yeah. So I think Jimmy Fallon gets his appearance, and I only realised that this was Jimmy Fallon. I knew he was in Band of Brothers, but I never picked up that he was this guy that arrived in the Jeep with the ammo. I remember him in another shot in a different episode, but here I guess it's because he's dirty and it's dark and what have you. What was he like on set, incidentally?
It seemed to be okay. I mean, I didn't know who he was, to be honest with you.
Right.
When he was on set, the only thing that I remember about him is that he couldn't drive the Jeep.
Really?
Well,
yeah,
that's a good segue into my Red Bull Express story. So one of the guys that used to live near me in my old flat back in Highgate was a guy called Rob Vasco, who, and if Rob ever hears this, hi Rob, and I mean no offense telling this story, but I'll tell it. So and my mate Steve, who played the guy who fires the bazooka, I forget the character's name now, McGrath, plays McGrath. He told me that because he'd met Rob because they were both from Liverpool, and when Steve came to see one of my plays, he met Rob in Jackson's Lane, and Rob was always trying to get work at Jackson's Lane, no cash in hand, filling envelopes with brochures or whatever. And he somehow got a job on Band of Brothers as an extra, driving the Red Bull Express, except that he lied about being able to drive trucks. He'd never driven a truck before, and those trucks are pretty, like, it's not like driving a car.
Right. Yeah.
And Steve said, like when he was he like trying to drive it, he nearly drove it off the road.
Yeah.
And it was a big kerfuffle. And after that, he was known as Rob Fiasco on set. So
we when we were shooting the kind of convoy, so we were all in the backs of the trucks and half tracks and everything, and so we were going around. So again, it was kind of a ring road, so we'd drive along, we'd have the cameras on the side of the road and in the road and what have you, and when we got to the end of the shot, we'd go back to first position, so we could literally just zip straight back round on the ring road and get back into first positions. And one of the cameras was buried in the center of the road, and of course every single one of the vehicles had to straddle the camera, so just literally go over the camera. And one of the vehicles, I don't know which one it was, but I think it might have been a half track, went straight over the camera. Like 100 grand's worth of camera or something.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
So that was the end of that.
Oh, that was the end.
Yeah. Did that driver have to leave the production, or was it just?
No, I don't think anyone really knew who it was. But they were, for the most part, I say for the most part, the drivers, the action vehicle drivers that we had were all very, very good, very, very competent. The tank drivers, the truck drivers, everybody was really, really good at what they did. They knew these vehicles and they loved these vehicles. And so I don't know who it was that went over the camera, but one of them got flattened.
Maybe it was Rob.
Maybe it was. It's funny you mentioning that now. Yeah,
I can't. Yeah, it could have been.
Actually, you better edit this out just in case he suddenly gets 100 grand's worth of bill through his door.
At the end of the day, that's what film production insurance is for, isn't it? So,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Hey, So, does anybody want to say anything else about the cast or the characters in this episode? Have we missed giving anyone a shout out that we should be?
No, I don't think so. I just think it's a very, in some parts, it's a very subtly acted episode. As you say, we really get to know the relationship between Lewis Nixon and Dick Winters. We have that sort of embellished a little bit more, so it's kind of not padded, but it's it's grown. We can see the relationship as it's grown.
Here's a section of the script, for example, with Muck and Pinkella, which is edited in. It's kind of in the episode, but it's also not really. It's really the bare minimum. The two of them working the mortar together, and again, sort of. I have noticed, because I'm really looking in the background in every shot when we've been preparing this, who's in every shot that's not talking. And Muck and Pinkella are established as characters throughout. It's just that their dialogue is very, very minimal. And they had more dialogue in this episode, which, as we know, they get, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the show, jump off. They get killed later in the Bastogne episode. So there are little bits peppered throughout this script with them, some of which sadly are not in the finished edit. Did you want to say something, Bob?
Yeah, one bit I'd want to draw attention to. That's it is in the episode, but it's only a really short bit, as it is in the book. But I thought it was worth drawing attention to the bit where Winters pulls his gun on Liebgott.
Yeah.
So
Liebgott's
going to is charged with taking 10 or 11 German prisoners back to HQ.
Yeah,
and Winters says, I want to see 11 back tomorrow. And apparently Liebgott's just like, yeah, sure. And Winters draws his M1 on Liebgott and says, give me your ammo. I'll leave you with one round, but give me your ammo. Now, that's also, again, the real reality of that is quite an intense thing, quite an interesting sort of insight into these guys and how they're acting, how they're behaving. In the book, it does go into a bit of detail about a load of other people. It talks about Boyle for quite a while. It talks about Christensen for quite a while. It talks about before Dyke gets the command, a couple of other people in real life between Winters getting promoted and Dyke taking over. There's a couple of other people commanded Easy briefly for a while, but I wonder if we're going to talk about
being one of them.
Yeah, Moose. Yeah, and I don't know if we or when you would want to talk a little bit about that attack on the actual dikes at night, because there's the day thing where Winters comes over that ridge and sees the kid. There's that encounter. And a completely different one is at night, isn't it? When they come across about 300 SS guys on the other side of a
in the book. Or
in
the episode,
both the night attack. Well, they fight in the morning, don't they? As well.
The night attack is really the start of the same attack in the episode, because they fall back to their fallback position and they stay there until dawn.
No, that's right.
So it's the same unit that they are SS.
They got in real life, they got heavily, Winters got heavily sort of rewarded for that as part of the reason he got a promotion. And he himself, Winters, said that it was the highlight of all Easy Company's actions for the entire war, even better than D-Day, because it demonstrated that Easy's overall superiority in every phase of infantry tactics: patrol, defense, attack under a base of fire, withdrawal, and above all, superior marksmanship with rifles, machine gun, and mortar fire. And they got a citation. Even Sink, Colonel Sink, the guy with the moustache. You say he's like
Dale Dye.
Like Dale Dye, yeah. Sink in real life, gave at least the first platoon a citation for gallantry, which said, by this daring act and skillful manoeuvre against a numerically superior force, the platoon inflicted heavy casualties on the enemy and turned back the enemy's attempt to attack Battalion HQ from the rear. So again, because like on D-Day, Winters is involved in that action, which is textbook. They still get taught at West Point, right? But there again, when he was in control, got to make the calls on how it was all going to go down. It was done sort of perfectly. I won't bother reading the quote, but there's other places in the book where they said just Winters always made the right call, or nearly always. It's just remarkable in hindsight that every time he had a sort of a split-second life or death decision to make, he made the right one. And you can't buy that, can you? That's worth thousands of men.
Indeed. There's a line here with Hubler, which, and again, this time around, I've noticed Hubler a lot more in the show, not just when he was trying to get a Luger. Everybody seems to be after a Luger, but yeah, Hubler here's got this off-screen line, which it may. I haven't checked it to see if it is actually in the episode. I can't recall it being there when I watched it 2 days ago. Where's my goddamn Luger? What do I got to do? Go all the way to Berlin just to get a fucking Luger? And again, this is setting up what's coming, which is when he does get a Luger, it accidentally goes off and wounds him and it kills him. You know, that happened a lot with our Sten guns as well, unfortunately. People shooting themselves in the foot with Sten guns was quite a common. They could fire accidentally so easily, especially the Mark 1. Yeah. There is a bit more with Liebgott as well in this episode. That scene that we just mentioned is quite an important little setup for some things to come later. Boyle, we don't really get to know. So when he's hit, it's not really a big thing emotionally, because he's just another one of the company. And it's remarked 22 wounded, 1 killed. Dukeman was the one who was killed. And then there's a breakdown of the Jerry casualties. I don't think we got this in the actual episode. Again, I think this was trimmed. Jerry casualties, 50 killed, probably 100 wounded, 11 captured. Yeah, there's the drink of water. I think this line is much shorter. Yeah.
Well, just to say again on paper there, just to reiterate, it was about 35 Americans versus 300 Germans, and the Americans have no wounded, or sorry, 1 killed or none killed, and the Germans had like 50 killed, 100 wounded. So again, just on paper, you look at that and you're like, well, Dick Winters is a superb sort of company commander. Just you can't ask for better.
Yeah. There's this thing here which I'm this has been removed. Winters opens his hand and stares at a handle taped grenade. He rises with a grunt and hurls the tape grenade as fast as he can. Nixon, what was that about? Nothing. So I may have missed it, but that must have come earlier somewhere in the script. Inside Man, can you shed any light on that?
None at all. I'm afraid.
That's your
I've no idea.
Well, I can tell you that in the book that happens, that Winters throws a grenade but forgot to take the tape off. Yeah. They tape them up to make sure they don't accidentally snag on a bush or something and go off.
Yeah.
Right.
So you've got to pull the pin out and remember to take the sellotape off of it before you throw it. And Winters had forgotten to do that, so he pulled the pin and threw it. And the kid, apparently was like waiting for it to go off, and it never did. And he feels foolish. Right. And yeah, that's that.
Right. Okay. Oh, well, there you go. So good for you to fill in the blank on that one. All right. Well, let's move on to.
Tonight we're gonna have to cross the river.
These crowds are gonna catch some hell.
Well, now digitally, there may well be some effects in this episode. If there are, I can't see them. Oh, we lost History Bro momentarily.
He quit judo.
Yeah, I mean, if there are, yeah, I mean, let's correct ourselves. The visual effects are in the Paris scene. We've got the Eiffel Tower in the background of one shot, of course, and we've got our. I'll bring it up again. That wonderful picture that the Inside Man has given us exclusive access to of that Paris set. I mean, again, you know, we've got to talk about my late great friend Alan Tomkins, the art director here. Oh, Bo's back. Hang on, let me do that. There we go. And you're back, sir.
So I'm guessing
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, there's the Eiffel Tower
Okay.
down there. I'm assuming that's probably that's blue screen behind, and that would have been added as either miniature or matte or whatever, one of the two.
Yeah, I mean, I do know that a lot of the backgrounds were actually miniature plates, so there were
That looks like a
shots
miniature
miniature
plate
plates.
on the
In
right.
fact, I do have some photographs somewhere.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I do actually have some shots of some miniatures. The miniatures actually being built by some of the crew. I can't, for the life of me, I can't find them. I've got them on a chip or a hard drive somewhere. But yeah, so some of those miniature shots were used in the Paris scene, and yeah, I mean, I don't know whether they were enhanced digitally. I'm sure there was possibly some kind of digital enhancement, but it looks pretty good.
Yeah, no, I mean, this looked great. I actually thought this was a French street. This looks great. I do want to, Blue, if you can get that shot of him emerging from the Seine River where we've got the Notre Dame Cathedral in the background, I really want to see if we can nail down if that's a visual effect or if it's not. And I think it's after this scene, isn't it? Doesn't he go for a bit of a wander, and it's sort of at one point he kind of comes out by the river?
Let me take it off for now just in case. I'll look it up.
I'll see if I can get a time code. You have a look for it, but I'll try and get a time code for that. But yeah, I mean, Inside Man, do you want to add something about the visual effects and stuff for this episode? What there is?
Yeah, I mean that scene, the whole Paris scene. I mean that was all done in one evening, so all of those sets went up just for one night.
Wow!
So it was a big.
That's a quick turnaround.
Yeah, very, very quick.
Yeah, I got that shot lens right there.
Oh, great! Thank you.
Sorry. Here.
Yeah, that's the polished shot of that, which looks amazing.
Wow.
I mean, that really did look like a. I would have thought that's either a set on a backlot, but it's actually inside one of the hangars, which I just think is incredible. Incredible job.
Yeah.
Really well lit as well. Incredible lighting.
Yeah, and
Jeffrey Unsworth.
And that's when we were doing the night shoot, and it was a fairly big call. So I think there's probably about maybe 150 background artists. And
sorry, I must correct myself. The cinematographer on these episodes was Remy Aldeferson and Joel Ransom.
Yeah.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. So we this was a night shoot, so fairly big call. So about 150 background artists, all in various sort of international uniforms. I mean, if you have a look there, you've got Polish uniforms, British uniforms, as well as American. So you've also got airmen and sailors there, as well as just army, airborne, etc. And so they had the whole kind of Paris street sort of laid out. Excuse me, laid out with all these tables, fake alcohol, loads of cigarettes for everyone to smoke their little hearts out. And it didn't really take that long. What I'd say maybe 3 hours, 4 hours for that shot to be done. That tracking shot is a tracking shot, and then after that, there was another shot that was done where you see a car going past. Winters is kind of walking down the street, and a car goes past, and my brother's actually in that car.
Right.
In that car that goes past Winters. I think he's a major from the Royal Artillery or something like that. So those two shots were done in one night. I don't know about the tram or the metro, and the rest of the stuff where he's walking through the street. I don't know, I couldn't say about that, but I'd say that's probably maximum 2 nights. But that Paris set outside the cafe where everyone's eating and drinking and smoking, and that was 1 night, and after that set was struck. So it's a lot of work that's gone into sort of one night shoot.
Yeah, but paid off though.
Certainly did.
So this is the shot here. So if we just play this for a second, and I know this location as well in Paris because it's been used in quite a few films. This angle that looks onto the Notre Dame Cathedral, with this viewpoint with the river. I think if you play a few more seconds, we just get a bit more of a view here. So now, is that a plate shot, do we think, or did they actually just go there for a night and shoot that?
No, they wouldn't have shot that there. I know for a fact that nothing was shot outside of the UK apart from the Switzerland stuff.
So that's got to be
that's either a digital plate or a miniature plate, or possibly a photograph, a background plate photograph that's been digitally manipulated.
I think photographs probably pretty likely. I mean, it looked great. It looks great. It's a great,
it does.
And it works really well. I do like that. Yeah, I mean, obviously the practical effects are great. Dancing dog films are split through remotely triggered or manual. They were manual for the most part. I think
they were.
Understand. Yeah. So I'm just looking through. I'm also just looking through the script, and there's another section here which is cut where Winters actually has a pretty big speech, and it's here. And also this is just after Moose has been shot. Lieutenant Norman Dyke. This is quite an interesting introduction to Dyke. Standing at ease in perfectly clean ODs, his name stenciled on the leather binocular case slung over his shoulder. He looks every inch the officer's square of jaw and shoulder. And then Winters is sort of doing a big speech. Dyke is standing at the head of Easy Company formation. The men, although cleaned up, are unshaven, wearing fragmentation grenades, etc. They look like a battalion of killers. The few replacements that have joined them are babes, just wandered in from the woods. Would have been nice to have seen this scene, which is not in this episode. Many of you men have taken to going around rigged out for combat. Frankly, I don't care, but the army does. Use your own judgment and make sure no one gets hurt. The 48-hour pass system will go into effect immediately. Cheers. It is by battalion, and 2nd Battalion will go second. Booze. I expect you all to use your discretion and common sense when on leave in Paris. The USO is in Reims, and so is the 82nd Airborne. But be careful, because so is General Eisenhower, and there'll be Red Cross Hospitality Club and movies at the base. Replacements will be arriving over the course of the next few weeks, and the Tacoma men and veterans of Holland are being depended upon to help the new guys to find their way around the companies. There will be close order drills, inspections, combat drills, and calisthenics. Yeah, I remember that in the book. He was always on about, always got to drill the men, make sure they don't get too lax and kind of out of the habit of being soldiers. I kind of wish that scene was in there. A lone replacement.
Again, I can kind of see why it's not, because it kind of just sort of drags it out a little bit. We don't get from A to B to C to D quick enough, and obviously, there is only a certain amount of time that we have per episode.
Was that scene shot? You would have been in that. Surely you would have been one of the guys.
I can't recall that being shot at all. I genuinely cannot.
Is Is that a Paul of Venels? I can't recall, or is that you genuinely?
Yeah, I really can't recall. I can't recall that
Okay.
being shot. It's something that I would have remembered, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah. Alice Perkins, lots of I can't recalls. Straying off topic. So that was an interesting day, man. So okay, yeah, and then we've got so there's a bit, this whole sort of section in Mormallon is a bit longer. And no one can stomach Peacock in first, and James is resented in third because he's from another battalion. Dyke's a division favourite, but 3 weeks in Holland, and the guys are calling him Foxhole Norman. Now that bit is in there, but it's all a bit shorter.
Yeah.
But Compton's the only officer who jumped into Normandy with the company, etc., etc., etc. So then they mention the Pacific here, which I don't think is in the episode. And this is when Bill Garnier comes back. So that was a big section. I'll keep scrolling through that. Anybody want to say anything else about the production design or visual effects that we haven't mentioned?
Well, good? I mean, on the backlot, I thought that's where the real kind of work was. I mean, the landscaping was phenomenally good. I mean, it was, it's really strange that generally when you're on any kind of set, right, you know that you're on a set. I mean, okay, the Paris set and everything, we knew we were on a set there because it was, blue screen and it was interior that was inside an aircraft hangar. But the exterior stuff that we did, including all the Dyke sequences and everything, the landscape was so vast. It was such a huge backlot that we were working on. We could have been there. It was so immersive for everybody. I think that's part of the reason why it worked so well with the actors. I think they really immersed themselves into that artificial world, because it just the sense of reality was, I've never felt anything like it on any movie or TV show that I've ever worked on, either before or since. That sense of realism, walking around the streets of Carentan, walking around the streets of Hagenau. It was just real. It just felt real.
How many days did this episode take to shoot? Do you remember? Give or take.
It's very, very difficult to say because, like I say, I think this was coming back after the hiatus. So we had a hiatus, and I was there on the very first day of the rehearsal. There was only a few of us there. There was me, my brother, a couple of others, and all the main cast of Easy Company, and we were there, and of course it was the first day that Tom Hanks was on set, it was just it was one of those days where you sort of had to pinch yourself. Hang on a minute, are we being directed by Tom Hanks here? It was a bit of an odd one, but in terms of duration, it didn't really seem that long. But then we were still working on different episodes at the same time. So we would be on one unit on one episode, and then we'd be on a blue unit on a separate episode. So we'd be doing bits of episode 3, even still sort of finishing bits on episode 3 or finishing up on episode 4.
Right, yeah. So there was a fair bit of jumping around production.
Yeah. I mean, even strangely, even when I think we were, I think I was doing in 1 week, I did a scene from episode 10, a scene from episode 5, and a scene from episode 2 in the same week.
That's nuts.
Yeah, it was a strange week, that one.
Yeah, there's the thing with Winters throwing the grenade, just to go back to that, is in the original script, is in the shooting script. So they must have just decided to dump the grenade thing and have him, is that he rips a handle take grenade from his harness, he throws it. And also a potato masher grenade is thrown at him. So that all happened, but the grenade didn't go off. So yeah, and then it goes into, and he smiles, and this is the scene with him. Turns to his right, 100 German soldiers. How many of you were there on that? What was the maximum number of German extras? Do you remember roughly, give or take?
There was one day there was one day, but on a different episode. On this day, I think it was about 200, 250. But there was another episode that I believe that it was 500.
I know there's always they have a big stock of dummies, don't they? People wrapped up in costumes, so that when you cut and you need dead bodies on the ground, they can be put in the place of people.
No, we did have a big stock of
dummies. Private Ryan, so did they not use them here?
We did have a big stock of dummies, but it wasn't kind of where we would if somebody got shot, they would leave them there. I mean, we did have a big stock of dummies, and I'll send some images over to you of the dummies that we had, but they weren't kind of replacing people that had already been shot. It would be walking into a scene, and there'd be over a battlefield, you'd see a few sort of dummies there here and there, but
I
it's
asked
kind of
that
set dressing.
I asked that question because that when you had that, God, there's a whole other company, and you cut to that shot of all the other guys coming over the Dyke. I was figuring some of you must have been recycled for that shot somehow. Just from
there was a lot of recycling.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So look, we can see this. Look at all these scenes that were cut. 58, 59, 60. This is all stuff in Paris at night with Winters. And then 62 omitted. And then he's actually trying to avoid contact with other soldiers. There's also, when he's in the one bit I noticed that was also cut is a group of soldiers invite him to come and sit with them at a table, but he doesn't want to be with them. He declines. This scene is also cut. So this is a character called Ali, partially recovered.
Sergeant Ali, yeah.
So George he was injured previously. He says, "Well, I was looking for you. I expect, sir. I was in hospital. I was in a couple of hospitals. 32 holes in me from one goddamn grenade." So did we meet Ali in the show?
Ali was the one that was injured when Liebgott comes in, and he says it's Ali. Ali's been hit.
Right. But the guy Ali that gets carried in on the tape. Okay, yeah.
That's Sergeant Ali. Yeah.
Right, so we meet this guy again. So this scene must have been shot, but was cut. 32 holes from one grenade.
Yeah, I would suggest that was shot. I'd suggest.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Didn't want to start out. Man, damn, this actor must have been fucking gutted. And then they all set to send me back to England, but I figured someone's got to fight this war. And I didn't know where anybody was. So I sold a Luger I had for $150, caught a train to Paris, hoping I'd run into somebody who knew where the company was. Turns out it's my own company commander. I'm stray as XO now. What happened to your boots? Some of a bitch stole them. So I'm forced to liberate the first pair of footwear I could find my size. It's actually quite. So this is how Winters gets to come back. Yeah. I like this, and he says, "But I'll be AWOL from the hospital, sir. Can't hear you. Thank you, Captain." Yeah. So and then here, look, we've got 4 more scenes cut out. Look at this: 64, 65, 66, 67 gone as well.
But he, the guy who played Sergeant Ali, George Khalil, a really, really nice guy. I got on very, very well with him. I thought he was an excellent actor. I don't know whether he's still acting, but he was an excellent actor. And when we used to speak, I mean, in particular, I got to know him on episode 6 and 7, I think it was, and he would stay in character. He would stay in character when I spoke with him. But I really liked him. I think he's a very, very nice guy, and a very fine actor.
I'm a big believer in people doing that, especially if you're British and you're playing American. I think if you can keep the American accent up for the whole day until you leave the set, I think that's a good example. And it just one person's doing it, it sort of ups the game, and other people start doing it. What was that actor's name again? George Khalil, did you say?
George Khalil, yeah.
I'm looking for him on the cast list, but I can't find him on IMDb, but I'm sure he'll be here somewhere. So we've got this is when Battle of the Bulge is announced, and then we're in the trucks. I'm just seeing if there's anything else. Welcome to Belgium, Colonel Sink. Here's that soldier. You've got to get out of here. Tanks, give me your ammo. Take it. You'll need it. That's a bit of I've got to say, it's a bit of a crap line. You've got to get out of here. Tanks. I mean, you got to get out of here. There's German tanks coming, or tanks are coming. Just the word tanks isn't really enough. And clips, it starts a chain reaction. That's the men giving out the ammunition. And Lieutenant Rice, and then there we go. We're paratroopers. We're supposed to be surrounded. I do love that line.
That's a great line, isn't it?
It is. It is a great line. I'm sure it's been used many times. All right. Well, let's head into our wrap up then. And I've got a couple of other things to mention, but I'll save them till the end.
Do is remember what you were taught. I guarantee you gravity will take care of the rest.
I'll go first on this one for a change. For me, the probably the thing that always stayed with me, and I think entirely intentional on the part of the production, is the face on the kid and the kid getting shot. I can see that. As soon as I'd watched that episode, I could always recall that image very, very, very clearly, which is down to the skill of the filmmakers. Also, on a fun contrast to that, Nixon getting covered with his own piss, pretty fun, lighten the mood a bit. Blue, standout, memorable moment for you?
I mean, like you said, the whole bat scene is fantastic, but just to me, the whole the PTSD in Paris, just the subway scene, that just because the way it's shot and the lighting, and it's going back and forth, and I mean, there's a lot of great scenes, but that's one for me.
Blue. Bo, rather. History Bro.
I guess the action bits in this movie, as I said earlier, I thought the sort of contemplative bits with Winters in Paris are done very well for what they are. Done very well, because that sort of thing could be schmaltzy or just not believable. It could very easily be done poorly, and it isn't. However, I just prefer the action bits in this episode. I think they're done really well. Again, that it's almost an iconic moment for Band of Brothers, isn't it? The bit with old Damian Lewis cresting that hill and that pause before he fires. It's one of the most iconic things for me, anyway, in all of Band of Brothers. And so, I guess that bit stands out. I suppose the one bit of dialogue when Sink says, light a fire under it, Dick, get it done. And then you can hear him moaning, day late and $1 short and all that. So I don't know, I like Sink. Quite like Sink in this episode. But it's a quality, good episode. I haven't got much to fault on it, really. The only thing I would do would have made it a bit clearer that Easy Company was sitting there for about 2 months, and that we're still in Holland. Because again, it's mentioned, and if you're paying attention, it's clear. But if you're not really, you could sort of miss exactly where they are a little bit.
Sure.
But no, it's still, again, the acting's superb, isn't it? The writing's superb, direction, everything about it's top quality.
Wow.
Let me read this super chat that's just come in. Tomby, good to see you, mate. And yeah, I've got to get you back on the channel at some point. Thanks for the stream, brother. Let's catch up sometime. Yeah, we'll come on the anniversary stream, which is on the 14th of July. We're going to have a quiz. I think we might do a war movie quiz because History Bro reckons he can rule the roost. So we've got to see. So. Yeah.
For the record, I've done no such boasting. Lance has completely made that.
That, as opposed to historical, that boast is entirely fictional and of my doing. I'll mention quickly before we come on to Inside Man, Shane Taylor in the shot here, who plays Doc Rowe. This was the show that introduced me to Shane Taylor as an actor. Shane and I are actually friends. And I have been heavily implying that he should come on the stream soon. So we'll see if we can get him on.
That'd be great.
Do it.
Yeah, I'm pestering him about it. I'm trying to pester him politely. Yeah. But Inside Man, what about for you? This guy. This guy was great, by the way. Adam Sims, well cast.
Bacon.
Yeah, Bacon. Sorry, Inside Man, go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, I again, it's one of my favorite episodes. And I'm going to be saying that every single week. It's one of my favorite episodes. Very little to fault in it. I mean, the historical accuracy in this is pretty spot on. But of course, as I said before, you could make an entire series out of just one of these stories because there are so many different facets and aspects to each of these episodes. I mean, just alone, Currahee, you could make an entire series out of Currahee, and then an entire series out of Day of Days, and so on and so on and so on. There are things that I would have liked to have seen in it. It doesn't kind of do the episode down because those things aren't in it. It's just as good as it will always be, that it will ever be. I think in retrospect, as people who love the show, we always want more of it. We would like to see more of it. We would have liked to have seen this scene in and that scene in, and we would have liked this explained more. And but I think that's probably down to our thirst of just wanting more of this show. And we only have 10 episodes to love and cherish, and we just want more. But for me, I just think it's pretty faultless. I enjoyed making this episode, enjoyed filming this episode, and it was nice to have an experience on set and actually have a director like Tom Hanks actually speak with you, actually talk with you and ask you questions, and just greet you, and it's true what everybody says. He really is the nicest man. He truly is.
So
He's a lovely man.
Tom Hanks directed this episode.
He directed this episode, yeah.
Right.
And it's a pretty bloody good episode to have directed,
Yeah, and this episode I think is written by Eric Jendrison.
Yep.
If I remember, and it is a very well written episode. And I mean, it's funny. The two big dialogue speeches in the episode were both cut, and I get why they were cut. I kind of would have quite liked the scene with the guy. Ali's scene I would have quite liked to have had in the thing. We probably didn't need another scene of Winters dressing the company and whatnot. I'm trying to get. By the way, my friend has been messaging me. This is the guy who owned the wrongly released edit of Bridge Too Far, and we've been trying to find it, see if we can find one on eBay. I know this was only released on VHS, and of course he threw it away, and that's the only copy we've ever seen. Yeah. It's got like the scene where the 82nd Airborne are trying to find 9 Megan Bridge and they're ambushed and they all get gunned down in the street, and that's like, you know, most people have never even seen that scene. So that neatly brings me on to a slightly unrelated but interesting topic, which I think my panel will find of interest. I'm currently working on a super mega edit of A Bridge Too Far. Here it is in the edit suite. So to give you an idea of how this version of Bridge Too Far is different, shall we say, if I let me extend my screen a bit so this image is. If you look at the image on the right here, and if I press play, and then we cut to German troops moving into Arnhem. Which is not in the film, is it?
No. So
this is a shot from another movie, also set in Holland. And what I'm doing is I'm taking everything to do with Market Garden, and I'm cutting it into one long mega Market Garden movie.
Wow,
that's cool.
So for example, this scene with the earlier part of the briefing, which again is 2 scenes in Bridge Too Far, and they're talking about whether Patton or Montgomery are going to attack. Then cuts to Easy Company in the pub before they're told about Market Garden and so on. So I haven't quite finessed the cut on that yet, but so we then cut to this bit, and there's lots of things I've got to tweak, like the grading and everything, and I've got to put the bars on so everything matches up. But yeah, so I'm going to do a private screening of that when it's not for public consumption for anybody as a pop at me. It's purely for my own entertainment purposes. But yeah, so that will be that's underway, because somebody else did one, and I've seen a bit of it where they edited the Easy Company stuff into A Bridge Too Far. So he threw it away because it was VHS and no one had VHS recorders. He forgot that it was the one with all the extra scenes, and I actually called him and said, I want it. Can I have it, please? Because I want it. I want to get the scenes and copy them and all that. And then he went to look for it and it had gone. So I got thrown out by his mum, I think. So yeah, so there we are. Anyone else want to say anything else about this episode before we wrap up?
Well, we haven't scored it, have we?
No, we haven't. So I guess we should do that. And people watching in chat, if you want to give this episode a rating out of 10, what do you give it? Blue Collar Loser, what do you give it out of 10?
Boy, I guess 9.5 out of 10. Not sure. Okay. I'm trying to be. I hate to give everything 10s. It sounds cliche, but yeah, it was almost like where Bo was saying with the action sequence was so fantastic. That was almost my best choices this episode, but there's so much to unpack. I mean, from him pouring urine over Nexus to wake him up. He's like, you doused me with my own pee, you know. And like on top, we said Buck Neil McDonough. He's having his own PTSD after him getting injured, and just his guys' ammunition. There's just so much going on, man.
Yeah.
History Bro, what do you give it?
Yeah, it's got to be a 10 or maybe a 9.9 or something. It's funny how you calibrate things. I talk to my friends about this sometimes. You calibrate it so that nothing is a 10, or there's one thing, your most favorite thing of all time, that's a 10. And then everything else has to be at least a 9.9, or do you give 10s out fairly freely? There's hundreds of things in the world that you would call 10. I'm more of that persuasion, and so I'll probably give it a 10. I think nearly every episode of Band of Brothers for me is a 10 for different reasons. So yeah, I'm going to go with a 10.
Yep, 10. Inside Man.
Definitely a 10 from me. Yeah, nothing less. I think anything less would be, I don't know, I think I'd be compromising my own personal integrity.
I give it 9.5. Yeah, I I can't find fault in it really. I just would like a bit more of it. So,
yeah.
I would like to have seen a bit more of this. The Pegasus evacuation. I would have liked to have seen the boats going across the Rhine, but obviously budget. I would have quite liked to have seen the alley scene, alley meeting Winters, and that whole story. And then, well, I think what that would have shown was that even though he's gone out of the environment of war to get some sort of normal connection, which he's actually unable to obtain, the moment when he meets Ali, who then tells him he's trying to get back to the unit and took a train to Paris, and he's trying to hoping to bump into someone from Easy Company, and then even on his 48-hour pass, he has the strongest connection with him. That would have been quite nice to see that. But yeah, 9.5 out of 10. Melvin's given it 10 out of 10. So yeah. It's a fantastic episode, cracking episode. All right, so let's talk about what we got coming up next then. That's Band of Brothers episode 5. Of course, next Sunday we should be doing episode 6, which is Bastogne. That's a pretty interesting episode. So coming up tomorrow night, 8 p.m, I am interviewing independent film director James Bush. James is the person who wrote and directed the Predator fan film Dark Ages. He also did the horror comedy Cannibals and Carpet Fitters. As you might imagine, it's a horror comedy with a name like that, which I was actually at the premiere of. I was one of the people that sponsored the Predator Dark Ages, which is how James and I met. So we're going to be talking about the projects he's got going on tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. I'm currently writing a World War I script for him. So I've been doing a lot of World War I research. It's set during the Second Battle of Ypres. So there's the standard director looking through the most expensive camera possible photograph. So he's a really good lad, good friend of mine. So he should have plenty to say. So got that coming up. And I've got a few more interviews lined up, but I'll save talking about them for another time. We're back on Tuesday with the Nielsen ratings, of course, where we'll be discussing, funnily enough, the town of Paris again, the city of Paris again, and its recent infestation with sharks. A historical movie currently on Netflix called Under Paris, where sharks invade the River Seine. I'm sure History Pro will be looking forward to. You'll be jumping on that, won't you? As soon as you get off the channel. Lou, what you got coming up?
I'm happy but also annoyed that Lord of the Rings, they're doing the whole 4K remasters and only doing one. So I gotta yesterday was Fellowship, today's Two Towers, and tomorrow's Return of the King. And I'm so gracious to have a teenager where Dad, it's my favorite trilogy of all time, and I'm like, I love my son. So we saw Fellowship. We saw Fellowship yesterday. It started at 6:30 p.m. and we didn't get out of the theater until 10 o'clock at night. So same thing. We're doing that. And then I'm just going to do like a quick 2-year anniversary stream. I mentioned, Bo and Inside Man, you, Lance. It's just a half hour like, hey guys, today's 2 years, and just thanks to everybody.
Oh, that's been about half an hour, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just me just saying thank you, because I just feel like, with the moderate success I've had, to say it's all me is stupid, because there's no way I ever would have got this far by myself. That's just ignorant.
No, indeed. I want to take the entire credit for that, if I may.
Exactly.
So I'll definitely jump on the stream and do that for you.
Just everybody just hanging out saying thanks, guys. 2 years, hopefully 2 more, and just thank you, everybody.
Fantastic. No, mate, I'll pop on there. Send me the link over, and I'll definitely pop on before.
Yeah, I'll jump on as well if that's okay, mate.
Of course.
All welcome. So, Bo from Blue to Bow. I got to take that bow off. Just put history bro on there. It confuses me.
Okay. All right.
What you got coming up?
Let's see. Coming up, the last thing to finish up in Epochs on Lotus Eaters was a 4-part series all about Maris, and so I finished that now. Got a pre-recorded couple of episodes about the life and times, achievements, and adventures of Captain James Cook, a very, very interesting 18th century explorer, one of the greatest explorers of all time. So latest things going up on Lotus Eaters will be a double series, a double episode about James Cook. Last week on Thursday, was it Thursday on the 6th? On D-Day, I did a special podcast, Lotus Eaters podcast, an hour and a half, just talking about D-Day and a fair few quotes from The Longest Day, Cornelius Ryan's, the original book, The Longest Day, not the John Wayne film. So that's up there. That's on the Lotus Eaters for free, unabridged. I'm talking to retired squadron leader Tim Davies, RAF, all about D-Day. So that's up there. Yeah, and coming up, oh god, all sorts of things. You'll have to wait and see. I'll say that.
Fantastic. Well, on that note then, Inside Man, unless you got anything to add.
Just one quick little story actually. When we were doing the bit at the end with all the fire pits and all the trucks and everything, and all the guys are coming past and they're asking for the ammo and socks and all that kind of stuff. Just prior to that, there was a little bit of downtime that we had. So me and a couple of the lads, we decided that we were going to go for a little bit of a kip. So we got ourselves a brew from craft services, sat in the back of one of the trucks, fell asleep. And of course, as we're sort of drifting off, one of the guys on the other kind of bench seat opposite said, I think someone's having a piss up the side of the truck. They've gone, nah. He said, yeah. He said it's been going on for fucking ages. So I lift up the flap of the truck, look down, and this face stares up at me, and he goes, "Hi there," and it's Tom Hanks.
Recreating his scene from League of Their Own.
Yeah, and
wow.
And as he runs off, towards the camera, this guy said to me, "Go on, I dare you to say it." So I shouted out, "Run, Forrest, run!" And of course he stopped, turned around, walked back, and I thought, "Oh shit!" So he's walked over to the truck and he's gone, "I bet you think you're the first person that's ever said that, don't you?" Yeah, that's my little Tom Hanks story.
I'm pleased to hear that he was as nice to work with as I would imagine.
Yeah,
and
truly lovely man. Yeah,
lovely man. I've heard no end of good stories about him, and no bad ones. So that's always
that is a great little story. Though it's like if you ever see in real life Arnie walking towards a chopper, you've got to shout at him, "Get to the chopper!" Right?
Get to the chopper.
If you ever see Tom Hanks running, the perfect thing to have said is "Run, Forrest, run." So yeah, well done for taking your shot.
I thought you were going to say someone said to him, "Oi, Tom Hanks, are you taking the piss or what?" That would have been a good.
She goes in the car too. You might sign an autograph. He just takes and rips it in half, throws it down like. So good.
Well. Well, now we've got a Tom Hanks wee story, so great stuff. You get to hear about everything on here. Right, that just reminds me to thank my panel, Blue Collar Loser, History Bro / Bo, and the Inside Man for telling us those unique facts, which
I love that chair, man.
Make this stream so special. Also the behind the scenes pictures and so on. We will be back with episode 6, Bastogne. It should be at the same time next Sunday. 95% certain that's not going to change. I am at an all-day rave on Saturday, So I might be a little bit hungover, but I will be there. Sunday is reserved for recovery. So fantastic stuff. With that said, it's